Yeah, it is. I mean, someone else we sort of know a little bit about Firpo, just in terms of the pre-contractual agreement that can happen as of the 1st of January. Are Leeds sort of aware? Obviously, Leeds will be very aware of this, but there doesn't seem to have been any conversations, or maybe there has been behind the scenes of like, potentially a new contract. Obviously, Leeds are probably looking forward to the Premier League, aren't they? In terms of if they are giving out a 2 to 3, maybe even 4-year deal, they've got to really look at whether or not Junior Firpo is going to acclimatise to the Premier League, of which he struggled to do beforehand. Are they conversations sort of that are going on at this moment in time? I mean, there other clubs are looking at Firpo now. Could he even be in negotiations with club this month, Nancy?
Yeah, I mean, it's that time of year, and there's not many in the Leeds squad that are obviously in this position, but Firpo is one of them, and probably the one that's played the best, maybe in the first half of the season. So, um, he's done everything he can to earn a new deal, I think, up to this point this season. And I know he's not always been super popular in terms of the performances he's put in, but Leeds are in a tricky place with this in terms of one, he can start chatting to other clubs, but two, is he a Premier League fullback? And I think last summer everyone was probably quite keen to move him on, even obviously the summer before as well, immediately after relegation. But I think the view has always been that he'll do a job in the Championship, but he's probably not necessarily your leading left back in the Premier League. So I think whilst he's injured, a lot of this is probably on hold. You know, not to say that he won't be, because he will be back, before the end of the season. But I think you probably just focus on, or you can use that as a get back to fitness, and then we'll talk kind of situation. But I imagine he's having conversations because he's definitely done enough this season to show that he is a good player, and he could be a really good pickup for someone in Europe for the future. So Leeds have got quite a big rebuilding job, I think, if they go up this summer, and that extends well beyond Firpo. So it might be the case that they leave it until they know or have a bit more sense of where they're going to be, particularly if they're sort of maintaining top two. But yeah, we'll have to just watch this one, I think, for a bit, because it's there are pros and cons to offering him a deal, I think, but
I
there's
guess,
a lot of work.
yeah, I guess with Aronson as well, he's another one, isn't he? He's one what we'll probably Leeds are probably looking at and saying, it's kind of worked him coming down and rebuilding his career sort of in the Championship. I don't know. Do you get the feel that there's potentially a number 10 in the pipeline, or do you think it's just an opportunistic market again, and Leeds are not going in with any sort of set ideas, and if one comes up, Leeds will go for it? Or do you think there's some sort of predetermined notion that Leeds might go into this window with the idea of a number 10 that they want and they will target?
I think at the moment, like, what I'm hearing is that they're pretty happy with the squad and the
Aronson.
way it looks, and Aronson in particular. I don't really see this being a busy window for Leeds in any sense. Even if there are injuries, I mean, they'll have people ready. If there's a prospect of a long-term injury, and with the way that people were going down yesterday against Blackburn, I was like, going, oh, get that list of centre backs up. But no, I think this will be a quiet window. And Farke said that. I mean, he's pretty good at managing expectations generally, but he's also not someone that will kind of lead you down the garden path and say, no,
Yeah.
we're not bringing anyone in, and then like 10 people get signed. He's a pretty straight talker, and in as much as a manager can be. So, he said he doesn't expect a lot, and I think the message was pretty clear in the summer. And Angus Kinnear did his interview with the Square Ball. Obviously, he said they feel the squad's good enough, and Leeds have got the depth there that I think. Obviously, if a quality number 10 becomes available, they'd be stupid not to. But realistically, I mean, the type of player they were looking at, obviously, in the summer, Buendia and Harmer, they're not cheap players. And so,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, in
Yeah.
January, it then gets more expensive because it's a silly market, January. It's not even, there's no hope of being sensible with most deals, and I think everyone probably knows it's less entertaining, but the 49ers are pretty sensible. So
Yeah, and I think we kind of had a discussion before as well. Like last time we're on the channel, that you kind of need to really do your business. I think Leeds have always been quite assured of this, injuries aside, really, and maybe international commitments and all this sort of stuff aside. You kind of want to do your business in the summer months, don't you? And January, if you need to, you'll dip into the market, but overridingly, summer is the period where you do the business for the season, really. And January is almost like a last chance sort of saloon where you need to maybe replace A, B, and C, but you don't really want to, sort of thing.
yeah, and do you break the bank to get a number 10 at the risk of disrupting what's been, I would say, a pretty good season for Aronson? Like, he's definitely improving. I think you can see the goal against Derby being a great example of where he's picking up better spaces and starting and finishing moves. It's not just the case of splashing some money to get someone maybe better in, but are you then damaging what could be another positive 4 or 5 months of development for a player who then could be Premier League ready? I know he frustrated people a bit in the Premier League before with under Jesse Marsh and everything, but he is learning. He's not a perfect player. Farke has made clear where he wants him to improve, but if there's any manager that will do that, it's Farke. So I think there's like that side of it as well, in terms of developing an asset that you've already paid quite a lot of money for. And even Jorginho Ruta was a bit of a rough diamond and a bit of a maverick in that role. So and he went for lots of money and is the type of player, if he hadn't already been playing for Leeds, you'd think, oh, fancy them taking a punt on him, if he'd already been at a different championship club. So yeah, I don't see them going for someone else. Although it'd be entertaining if they did. So
100%. Yeah, it feels like right now it will be. I think, yeah, I'm not as desperate, Nancy, as I have been in previous windows for Leeds to do something. I mean, I do look at the other clubs around us, and I'm thinking, okay, they may have work to do. I think Sunderland in particular and Sheffield United, maybe Burnley are on a better footing when it comes to depth. But another name that keeps getting bandied around is Nico Elvedi, Borussia Mönchengladbach. I don't know if you've heard anything of this. It's maybe agent talk, a centre back at Borussia Mönchengladbach, 10 million quid apparently, according to reports. It feels like that would be a lot of money for Leeds right now, especially with taking into consideration PSR, which you've always got to be careful of, and that expenditure within a certain year span. I presume you've heard nothing on that either. It's or is that just one of those where it's agent talk? Maybe Farke's managed him. He's been in that sort of bracket before.
Yeah, there's always going to be those links, aren't there? And obviously, Verba went on loan there, and there's little links between Leeds and Mönchengladbach. But no, genuinely very quiet. So I don't think. I mean, £10 million is a lot of money at any point.
I guess that's more the question, isn't it, Nancy? Would you see Leeds spending, sort of putting expenditure out there like that, or maybe if something happens, you sort of maybe expecting, as a naive person on the outside, more of the loan structure been improved if we were to do anything?
Yeah, I would expect maybe loans for depth, but I don't. Obviously, it's hard because they have spent in January before with Rutter, but I think when you look at the players they've got at centre back, Stroke's having an unbelievable season. I think Rodon's been pretty strong as well, and obviously you've got a cover there with Ampadu. I think they probably could do with a bit more depth, but I don't know that a £10 million player is the answer to that, unless you're expecting either a change of system or you're expecting, them to become a £50 million asset by playing for you at the tail end of this season and into the Premier League. So then they've got to sort of unseat one of Strauch or Rodon. So I don't think Farke, I mean, obviously it's not just him that has to say on the transfers, it's a whole process, but I don't think he'd be keen whilst he likes competition, I don't think he'd be keen to sort of disrupt what's already a really nice partnership. But there's not a great deal of depth. Obviously, you've got James DeBio as well, but I think that needs a bit more strengthening before if they go up before the Premier League. But yeah, I mean, if he's available now, he probably should be available in the summer.
Yeah, yeah,
And then
you'd
that
think.
would be a fair amount of money to pay, I think, if you know, in the summer.
Definitely. Are you sort of confident with Daniel Farke at the minute in terms of his management and what he's getting out of the side? Obviously, I don't want you to you're not going to get on the wrong side of Leeds fans. 'Cause I think there's a bit of a split there, to be honest, Nancy.
Yeah.
Even though he's top of the division with Leeds United, but do you think he should be getting more, or do you think he's managing the side well and Leeds are sort of on a good front right now?
I think he's doing just fine. I mean, I know that people blow hot and cold with him and some are firmly Farker out, which is
Yeah,
wild when your team's top of the division. But you know that's a fair expectation for Leeds, um, especially sort of in a post Bielsa era. So um, I think he's doing the job that he's been hired to do. So you can't argue with that, can you? I mean that I know sometimes they're frustrating or they struggle to break teams down, and I think they get the performances they need. Yes, there have been a few hiccups, but they can ride a couple of defeats out, over the course of the season. It shouldn't hinder them too much. There's a big panic, I think, every time, and that's just a bit of a hangover from last season and every single point dropped being so damaging to the chance of automatic promotion. But no, I think he's doing a good job. I think he manages a lot of the external pressures really well for the players. He manages a lot of expectation on them really well. And he's kind of got that cool character that is probably needed to thrive in the job. And I know he doesn't always provide the most like beautiful flowing football, but they're still pretty good to watch. They're winning,
yeah,
and the real test would be next season for me if they go up. If they don't go up, I think that's enough from him, sort of thing. He's two cracks at it. It should be
yeah,
more than reasonable,
definitely.
especially with the squad. Yeah.